So lovely to see all your faces
Nice to see yours.
after our 3 months away. We just have a super terrific program today. We're going to go kind of a little bit off the map. You're going to see a different view of MySpace than you have in the past because I have a new device, so that's exciting. And we're going a little off the map with Anwar, who's going to show us some puppet making today. Pretty great. Our headliners are going to be taking us in a slightly different Swedish and academic direction, which is going to be pretty great. So lots of good stuff. We need to talk business first, of course. First of all, we would love for all of you to put your place names next to your names, either in the chat or in right there on the screen. Definitely in the chat though, because then we can record that and we can see in the future, we can reference that, how many people are coming from all over the place. We're gonna take a quick detour over to co-host Emily, so Emily can say hi.
Okay. Hi. All I can see is Sean.
That was it.
Yeah, hi. Welcome. I'm really happy everybody's here. It's good to see everybody. I'm glad to see everybody's active in the chat there. And I'm going to be running a little bit of tech and all of that. So Sean's going to do all the talking, which is how I like it.
Let's hope it sounds vaguely fluid. Isabel, who usually joins us, is not going to be with us today. She's got exciting new citizenship things going on, but she'll be back with us in August. Looking down the list, you've all got that. We did a little Facebook promotion this past week, and I believe we have 35 new subscribers simply because Kyle spent $1 or $2, and we had some very specific demographic narrowing, which included the people of Hoofda. How did I do, Lisa? Okay, I got a thumbs up. Good. I've got some other little things to tell you about, but I'll do that in between things. So let's jump in. All right. I know many of you, and many of you who are not even here, are as excited about this as I am, because we've been waiting for this for, I don't know, David, 20 years, 25 years?
Close to 20 years, yeah. We've been working on it for at least 15 years for sure.
Yeah. So the elements of pop-up, which I probably should have had sitting here handy so I can hold it up in front of your faces, because I didn't ask Ross or David to do that either. There it is. There it is. Everyone's got it. Everyone's got it. You know, this is that first how-to book that so many people have used and have looked at. And David, who is not Noel.
Sorry, this is her computer, so that popped up this morning. And I thought, darn. Okay, well, anyway,
that's fine. That's fine. So David, along with Jim Diaz, developed this how-to book that, kind of overwhelmed the world. That's hyperbolic, I understand, yeah. But you know what I mean. And the sequel has arrived, and Roston Meyer as Proposition Press is. Are you calling yourself publisher? Are you calling yourself producer? Both? Collaborator?
Publisher.
Publisher.
Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah.
Co-publisher.
Co-publisher, exactly.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. So Roston, of course, has a deep history of sort of boutique publishing. I don't know if you would own that word, but you're a small independent publisher in Boulder, and you got a lot of great projects going on that you've done kind of single-handedly, in addition to the creative.
Out of his garage.
Out of the garage.
Yeah.
And David, of course, has done 1,000 bug books.
Only 500.
Only 500. Right.
500.
Right. How many bugs in a box?
Yeah.
So they're going to tell us about this new book. Take it away, guys.
Go ahead. Oh, well, okay. So it's the complexities of pop-up. We, Jim and I, literally after we completed the elements of pop-up, started talking about this, and this would be a sequel. What would we do next? If the elements of pop-up is paper engineering 101, this is paper engineering 201. So your second year of college. but that was the idea. Is like once we shared what we consider the basic structures in elements of pop-up. Now we talk about what you can do next. Once you understand the basics, how would you make your engineering more complex? And we not only do things where we combine mechanics, but we talk a lot about how die cutting affects the structure and just the general design of what you're doing with your pop-up. That's the basic concept of the book. And then we just went through and combined. We made a lot of little bits and pieces, and what do we think about this structure, that structure, and we ended up, I think, with 22 individual pop-up structures in the book. Some smaller, like the elements of pop-up, the smaller pieces that are 3 by 3 inches, and then we have done some larger pieces. For instance, like a spinner here, that are more complex, that need a larger size lift. And so that's what this book is. And we just, sort of talk about it in those terms.
Excellent. Excellent. So, so what are we looking at in terms of timeline right now then?
I think we'll probably have something available by fall of 2021. Isn't that right, Rostin? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I think pretty soon. I think we'll probably go to print in July or August.
It's already, the book's completely ready to go.
It's ready to go. And so we've got a Kickstarter campaign. So Opposition Press, my company, we're actually co-publishing. David's Blossom Books is going to be doing some direct to bookstore sales.
We'll do wholesale.
Yeah. And so we have a Kickstarter campaign launching this Tuesday, so in just a couple days.
Exciting. I've seen it. It's cool.
Yeah, it's good. We've got a great video. Actually, Ashley Turner, who did the voiceover for the video, David, is on the call right now. Hi, Ashley. Yeah, and we've got 2 editions. It's the regular book, and then as I do with all the other Proposition releases, we're going to do a special edition of 100 copies that'll be signed by both David and Jim, and comes with a nice slipcase and a foil stamped cover. And yeah, we're excited to get it out there. And for me, it's really exciting to be part of something that's like so important to the world of paper engineering. And thank you, David.
Yeah, well, thanks for helping. We couldn't do it without Rostin. I mean, Blossom Books has not actually published a book yet. This is the very first one. So, where we do, we create books and sell them as a packager. But this is the first book that we've actually, generated on our own from the beginning. But we couldn't have done it without Rostin, taking care of half of it, and of course his good base of people who follow his imprint. So that's going to be very, very helpful. And hopefully Rostin's website will be selling to most of the world, where the Blossom Books edition will only be available in the US. So that's the hope there. We've been trying to sell this book to publishers around the world for, like I said, 15 years. And it's just to the point where it's too expensive for them to do. So this is the way we've solved that issue. Yeah.
It's an excellent solution.
Yeah.
Rostin to the rescue once again.
No, I'm excited about it. Yeah. Plus, it's going to be real cool to be on the same list as a lot of the books that Rostin's done. I mean, I'm not sure whether you guys are following what he's doing, but he's doing some really neat stuff, So, and I understand there's some really cool stuff in the works. I'm not going to say what, but
There is, yeah. So we might talk about that at the conference later this year.
Sure. Yeah.
And
So,
Kyra's been putting info in about the Kickstarter and various other things. So keep checking the chat to
Thank you, Kai.
info as it goes along. And also all of you new people who've arrived recently, if you put your location in, that would be great.
I believe we have also officially topped our previous high number for this event.
I believe.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, Rostin, Rostin and David, let's bring out some questions.
Sure. Love to.
So this is the first question. It's basically a production question. David mentioned that the reason we've all been waiting so long for this is not your fault. It's not David's fault or Jim's, but it's because it's hard to find someone who wants to do it because it's spendy. So, Rostin, how are you clearing that hurdle?
Yeah, so most of my books are in relatively low numbers of usually about 1,000 copies. So I think as a publisher, I'm used to paying a little bit more per unit than most of the big publishers making pop-ups. So that said, I think we're waiting on some updated pricing for complexities, but I think it's going to fall in line with that, and that's something I'm already doing. And the price of the book, as you guys will see on Tuesday when the Kickstarter launches, is pretty close to the original element. So the regular book won't be as expensive as some of the art books that I publish. And it just I've kind of figured that out with everything I've been doing the last 6 or 7 years. So this just it works out, and I've got a decent fan base and audience around the world, both paper engineers, pop-up fans, art fans, and it's interesting to hear from so many different people just from posting on social media that they're excited about this book. They have the first copy. So for me, the kind of challenge for this Kickstarter as far as marketing it is trying to reach those people that do have the first book, the elements of pop-up, and how do we get to them. And so that's something I'll be working on for the 30 days the campaign's going.
So last round, when we were talking to Renee about her Shivers project, they were listing out some of the ways that the book has expanded over the course of a extravagantly successful Kickstarter campaign. Is that going to have any impact for this project? That kind of support function?
Kind of. So I think you're referring to like stretch goals and that sort of thing. Is that
stretch goals? That's what the young people say. Yes.
So for everybody that doesn't know, on a Kickstarter, and this is actually now built into Kickstarter, where it had to be kind of done manually to a certain degree before. So let's say the goal is $50,000 for a project. If the campaign reaches that goal and they're really close to 60,000, the idea behind the stretch goal is if we hit 60,000, you'll get this extra thing. And yes, it's funny because David and I just spoke a couple days ago about this. And do we want to say what it's going to be?
Sure, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
Absolutely.
So in the back, I don't know if this mock-up that I have doesn't have it in, but so in the back of Complexities, David will hold it up to his camera. So there's a little envelope, and there's going to be basically the regular book is going to come with pre-printed, cut, and scored paper to make 6 of the 22 pop-ups. So what we decided we're going to do, and we're not exactly sure what the numbers will be, but the stretch goals will be additional pieces. So hopefully we get to a point where everybody that does back the Kickstarter gets included, enough pieces to make all of the pop-ups from
the entire
Complexities, not just the 22. I mean, not just the 6 that it's going to come with.
Including the first piece we're talking about too. So yeah.
Nice. Emily, let me pivot to you for a calling of a chat question, if you have any you want to throw in there.
Yeah, there is one that Jim Kleefeld put in. He's wondering if you use separate companies for the printing, die cutting, and gluing, or do you have one assembler?
Yeah, so pretty much everything that I've done, except for the, sometimes I'll make a little small edition of a print or some cards here in my studio, is I use Jackie Lau for pretty much everything, and it is all one company.
Mhm.
So he also will make the special edition slipcase. In some instances, I'll outsource, some of the extra items, like sometimes I'll do an acrylic slipcase or something a little bit fancier that maybe he can't do. But yeah, he's been great. And that's just real quickly, this is a box for a special edition for an upcoming art book that is made by the same pop-up printer that makes the books.
Nice.
As a general rule, most often pop-up books, the entire thing's done by one company, one printing and assembly, group. Srivatana, Topon.
And Rostin, would you say the name of the company again? Jackie Lau?
Jackie Lau is his name, and I believe his company is Green Color Printing International. Green Color something. Let me look it up.
Pirate's looking to put it in the chat, so she's she's trying to find it.
I've also noticed a comment about support. Can I assume that the best way that everyone here today can support this project is A, go to Kickstarter themselves and buy one, but also to share the Kickstarter link?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kyra put it in the comments, and for everybody that signs up, as soon as we launch the project, and my plan is I'm going to launch it at around 10 o'clock Mountain Time, Tuesday morning. So everybody that's already signed up on the Kickstarter will get an email from Kickstarter saying the project is launched, and we'll also be posting it to social media, and I'll send out an email through my list as well. But yeah, everybody that could share it, that would be amazing.
Throw it in social.
We can use all the help we can get.
Yeah.
So David, like I said to Rostin earlier, everyone's waiting for this book. You're gonna sell out.
That's really good to hear. That's really good to hear. You never know, when you think of an idea, you have no idea how it's going to come across. So it's exciting to think that people would be interested in, the next phase. That's great. That's great. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, we're gonna pivot. Oh, Emily, are you waving?
Well, there's a couple more questions. One is, I think that the one is whether the books are assembled overseas.
They are.
Yes.
And Jackie Lau is based where?
He's in China.
He's in China. And then I don't know if you can preview some of the Kickstarter prizes, or if we'll just have people go to Kickstarter and find those.
Yeah, so sure. So the book it's going to be, the regular book will be $40, and we're actually going to do a special kind of promotion through Kickstarter where the book will be $5 off. So it'll be $35 for the first 72 hours of the campaign. So first 3 days of the campaign, it'll be a little bit cheaper. And then the special edition, which is limited to 100 copies, is going to be $200 each.
Sounds great.
Time.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Can't wait. Can't wait. Can't wait. Can't wait. If there's anything else that lands in that chat, we'll forward it to folks who can answer questions, and maybe we can circle back around to some additional things at the very end of the day today if we have time. But let's roll forward. We are next going to show our third installment of Ellen Rubin's tour of her library. And Ellen, of course, has this great collection in New York, and she has been featured on Atlas Obscura, Ellen Rubin, online. She's known as the Pop-Up Lady. Ellen is not here in person today, so we're just going to roll video And if you have questions for Ellen as you're watching the video, you are welcome to contact her. And Kyra is going to throw her email address in the chat. And Ellen loves to talk about her stuff, so she'd be happy to answer questions. Emily, over to you.
Okay. Here we go with Ellen.
Now, in the mid 18th century was a German printer called Martin Engelbrecht, and he took advantage of the peep shows that were traveling around the countryside. And he took these pieces and layered them one behind the other. So you had the feeling of perspective, which was very popular then. Now, this particular one has sides on it, but so many of the Engelbrecht tunnel books or peep shows did not have sides, and each individual image was put into a slotted board so that they stood up one behind the other. The Engelbrecht tunnel books or peep shows were done in 3 sizes. There was, this one is the smallest, there was one a little larger and one larger still. Again, being so fortunate to find the original wrapper in which it was kept. It's a very sturdy piece of paper, so I can understand how it survived. Well, Euclid was doing his mathematics much earlier, but this book from 1758 is very unusual because it allows the student to pop out each of these figures and create them so you would understand the 3-dimensionality of each of the figures. He did another book, and I should say he was not the one who created these movables. It was subsequent printers, publishers, and mathematicians who did it. There's another book that has little paper structures, so when you stand them up, you understand the volume of these mathematical figures. This book is from 1758 with leather boards. I have one more book from the 18th century. It's undated. I have not yet discovered whether this is Tibetan or Mongolian, but I've been promised by a university librarian that they would find out for me. And their depiction of Buddha and the use of a vowel in here. Since this is a language that I can't even decide what the language is, I cannot say what this is about, but I suspect that this is the zodiac. Very heavily annotated. And again, a manuscript, hand done. Well, I'm just going to briefly go into the 19th century, the very early 19th century, to show you some really special things. This is a German friendship book. Probably many of us, or older ones like me, had these in school and had people sign them. And the artwork in here is nothing short of spectacular. But what attracted my attention to this one is the beehive that someone built into this. And so the beehive or the spider web had a hidden image or message underneath, and someone went to the trouble for this person to put it in here. The beehive is from 1809, but there are other writings in here from a little bit later. And it's actually some of the artwork, which I'm trying to show you for page 1. Just really beautiful. I've already mentioned to you about manuscripts. And so this is a hand-done calendar, a perpetual calendar. And it's very unusual because it has this wheel, but this narrow wheel that travels underneath a little linen rope. And so you can turn it around and coordinate it and make it come to the right date. And here are all your little linen knots on the back. I went ahead just a little too fast in that I didn't get to show you the harlequinades. And these are considered the earliest books for children, started by Robert Sayre in England in 1770. Now, this is a Robert Sayre Harlequinade and the Columbine, all hand colored in its original wrapper. And the mechanism was 4 pages. And by turning the flaps up or down, the images change and the text changes. And because of this flap technique, they were also called turn-up books. And I hadn't meant to show you that one. I had brought, this is a facsimile so that I could handle it a little bit rougher. And you can see the image changes and the text changes, and that is how the story was advanced. This was so popular that here is a manuscript done telling a story or used as a gift for someone. William Makepeace Thackeray, the writer, came to the United States and was the guest of someone and who had young children, and Thackeray created a harlequinade for these children. So that is all pre-1800. Well, that's all for my pre-1800 books. And thank you for allowing me to share them with you. I like to say I shop and share. So visit popuplady.com and maybe there's some other things I can show you. Thank you very much. Bye.
So for folks who are seeing just this 3rd installment and therefore maybe missed the first 2 and not sure what's going on, Ellen's other 2 installments are in our 2 previous Zoom events, and you can see all of our old Zoom events on our YouTube channel, which Kyra either has or will in the not too distant future throw in the chat. There it is. Thank you. So go take a look. Also, as in terms of the questions and the comments that fall in the chat, all of that gets captured and is available to be downloaded. And you'll see that when you get your email in the not too distant future. That gives you also the link to access this Zoom event should you want to watch it again or share it with somebody, because we'd love for you to share it. A quick reminder, if you're having kind of sluggy reception today, I may not be using young people words again. We've got a lot of people on here and lots of bandwidth is being used up. So if you're having trouble, turn off your video and that'll help. All right, one more quick thing before we bring in Anwar. Y'all know that we have a biennial conference, and it was supposed to be last year, and then but this year we're going to do it, and it's going to be in Denver, and it's going to be September 30th to October 3rd, and it's going to be a hybrid event. So come to Denver if you want to come to Denver, if you feel comfortable with that. I'm going to be in Denver. Emily's going to be in Denver. Ralston's going to be there. Tons of people are going to be there. Lots of people have signed up already. But we're also going to have a virtual component, and lots of people have signed up for that too. We are charging for it because we're going to bring some quality additional stuff to that experience that's going to make it worth your buck. But take a look at our website, movablebooksociety.org, for more information about the conference. We'd love to see you there. It's a good time. Come meet Ellen. She's terrific. All right. It's time for Anwar. So we're super happy to have Anwar with us here today. He's an interdisciplinary artist from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he focuses on self-portraiture and puppetry and community art. He's a recent graduate of the UW-Madison MFA 2020, where Floyd Pruitt earned a BFA also in sculpture from UW-Milwaukee in 2016 and a BA in psychology from Harvard in 1999. Floyd Pruitt teaches papercraft puppetry workshops and produces a family-friendly sing-along called Hip Hop Puppetry Party. That's a lot of P's in there, Anwar. That's stumble-worthy. Anwar also has solo exhibitions and some mural commissions this summer. He's got a lot going on. Let's hear more from Anwar.
Thank you, and thanks for having me here today. I am so just overwhelmed with just all the information I've learned today. It's so fantastic. So yes, thanks Sean and Emily for inviting me. I figure I would just start by showing a quick video of some puppetry.
I've been having these strange dreams where I'm a rapper, for crying out loud, and I'm a human sometimes. Yeah, gross. Yeah, right. This is all confidential, right, Doc?
Hey, everybody, there's something you should know. It's time to start, but I'm on the Anwar show. Bye-die-die-die, grab a seat or stand if you like. Just make yourself comfortable and let's go on a ride. Join me for a ride. Are you down to ride? Ride, ride.
I'm happy. I'm not that happy. I'm happy. I'm pretty mad. I'm really happy. I'm actually kind of pissed off. Why? We're happy. We're not happy. Yes, we are. No, we're not.
Dancing and faces everywhere. My deceased cat is my DJ. It's MC, it's MC, it's MC, it's MC, woo! It's MC, woo! Hello, 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 it's MC, it's MC, it's MC, it's MC, woo! It's MC. Woo! Hello, hello, hello. It's MC Green. MC Green. MC, 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 MC. Woo! Ha, 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 ha.
I just, like, where, you can't make this stuff up, Doc. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, my subconscious, is that what it is? Then I had this other dream, and it just really threw me for a loop, Doc. I don't know what it means.
No, you can't have my shoes. You can't have my shoes. But they're so beautiful. I want your shoes. No, they're my shoes.
Thank you for watching that. So yeah, as Sean mentioned earlier, one of the big parts of my practice is self-portraiture, and that has been combined into the puppets. Early in the video, you saw me operating some puppets that were taller than me, and so those are all abstract mixed media self-portraits, and all of the drawings on the screen behind me are also really fast contour line drawing self-portraits where I'm wearing headphones. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my virtual background. So to show you the actual background that I have here today, and we can start talking about the make and take. And I do want to be mindful of the time, and that is not one of my strong suits. So Sean or Emily, please do just remind me of where we are. But if you got the PDF for the Pocket Puppet, then you probably saw this puppet right here. And this is the one from the PDF. And essentially the Pocket Puppet is, it's two pieces. It is the pocket, which is a sleeve kind of open on one end, and then a slider, which goes into the, oops, wrong way, into the pocket. And you just want it to be a little loose enough that you can easily pull the, either raise the pocket up and down or pull the slider down and force it back up. And one of the cool things about these pocket puppets is that they're double-sided. So that's one of the great opportunities. And these have been great for working with youth. So the easiest way to make a pocket puppet today would be to start with an envelope. This is a smaller sized envelope. I had a ruler with me. At any rate, it's not your standard business size. It's a little bit smaller. And what I like to do is seal it. So this one's actually sealed now. And then just go ahead and fold it in half after you seal it. And then cut or tear along the midway point. So I really love the aesthetic of tearing, but I'm just going to go ahead and cut for today. And so depending on the envelope you are using, with this specific size envelope, you've got these two pieces now. And if you just turn one of the pieces to the side, this would very easily create your slider, which then should go inside of inside of your pocket, which would be the other side. And there you already have the whole workings of a pocket puppet, a pocket and a slider. And the next thing would be to sort of start adding your faces. I draw a collage. You can see with this example right here, I drew on it and then used some like sticky tape for the top. And again, the double-sided feature is one of the things I sort of think is, excuse me, most exciting. You know, a lot of my work is made from paper and recycled materials. So if you remember the little segment from the video with the 6 puppets who MC blue, MC red, MC yellow, MC orange, you know, if you looked at the aesthetic, it's all just sort of cobbled together from pieces of paper that, you know, are approximately that color. If you don't have a, you know, one of these smaller size envelopes, then I'm just going to seal this one. And let's just pretend that this is a larger size envelope. And so I'm just going to cut off the end here. So, you know, so if you had a larger envelope, you may very well end up with a pocket that is about this size. And in this case, you can make actually a larger pocket puppet just by adding, taking an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, folding that and using it as your slider. And well, I've misplaced my copy paper, but I think that's okay. You'll understand. But I do have the example from the PDF where I took just another sheet of paper, folded it in half, and then put it into the pocket. And you can see that this is sort of like a used envelope even, and I just have one clean side. So, you know, some of the next steps with the pocket puppets is, of course, you know, I said like drawing or collaging your faces onto them. And one of the crucial steps in that process is making sure, actually, let me just use a fresh one here. Making sure that it moves properly, but then also I like to draw my upper lip first. I'm gonna use a thicker marker. I'll just go ahead and pin this to the wall. So yeah, I like to draw my upper lip first on the pocket. I'm right-handed, so I'm drawing with my left now. And so then I've got my upper lip established. And then you just want to find the sweet spot where you can like sort of, you know, pull your slider very easily. And when your slider is sort of towards the top of the pocket, you can go ahead and draw in your lower lip. And so then when you pull down, you get the opening in the mouth. When you push back up, you get the mouth is closed. No, I actually made the nose a little small on this one. Wow, that's getting really abstract, but that's okay. So some of the tips and tricks or hacks would be, for instance, collaging onto your pocket puppet. So using just, you can see that this part right here, that's all blue, is kind of my standard pocket puppet. But then just by gluing, you know, a face onto it, you can still get functionality. So make a larger puppet from, you know, a smaller size pocket. And again, they're double-sided. This one is very much in the vein of some of my other self-portraits. So this is one of my modeling headshots from 20 years ago. And, you know, I put on these special eyes. And then I just, so you can see here's the basic pocket puppet, but I just glued the photograph onto the basic pocket puppet. So you can do that with your envelope puppets. You can do it with any version of the pocket puppet. One of the, if you had a hole puncher and sort of a larger hole punch like I did here, I went ahead and took my pocket and I punched holes for the eyes with a pretty sturdy hole punch, and then punched a hole for the mouth, put my slider back in. And so then when you pull your slider up and down, the eyes move a little bit, and this mouth is actually, on the slider and not drawn onto the pocket, the pocket portion of the pocket puppet. Hip hop puppet party. That is a lot of peas, Sean. And I think one of the last sort of tips or tricks or hacks is this version right here, where I've taken my pocket puppet, and I turned the pocket upside down. So then this one is operated from above. So instead of, so I just pull the slider up and down. And as you can see, I've also sort of punched those holes for the eyes and the mouth. And then this body here is actually just sort of pinned onto this board along with the pocket puppet. So those are all of the, those are some of the, I guess what I call the pocket puppet basics. And I would love to answer any questions if anyone has any, or as Sean and Emily, please do tell me about the time constraints, because I don't want to, just want to be mindful.
I think you're fine on time. Mostly people are just oohing and ahhing about your puppets.
Thank you.
And specific questions, but and Kyra has put in links to your artwork and various other things. And someone does ask a question as to why paper as a medium.
Sure. Sure. And I think that's a really important question for me. And really, I think that paper feels very democratic. One of the reasons I make, the puppets the way I do is so that I can easily, and I run a lot of workshops for youth. And so one of the purposes is to easily show a young person how to make the puppet, but then also that, and then they can probably teach someone else. The materials are not expensive. And this is, I've gone through a few different iterations of different sort of paper craft puppets made from recycled materials and things. And this is the most simple, because you can just use an envelope for, from the mail. I want kids to be able to teach I want people to be able to teach others how to do it. When I went to the National Puppetry Festival in Minneapolis 2 summers ago, one of the seasoned puppeteers said that the best thing about the business was that you could always make a living if you were willing to do children's parties and corporate events. And, I work with incarcerated youth. I work with marginalized youth, youth who do have to work, as a way of, helping their families. And for the sort of art-inspired young person who, falls in love with this, puppetry and this like sort of easy style of puppetry, then this is a great opportunity. I think in every neighborhood, there's always someone having a birthday. And for the enterprising teenager, I think this is a way to earn some money. And I work with kids in juvenile detention, and a lot of times they're getting there for stealing, and sometimes it's for fun, and sometimes it's for for the money. And then here's a way that they can use their artwork to to support themselves. So so I think that's one of the main reasons I use paper. Yeah, I think so.
So that one of the other things I'm seeing there, Emily and Anwar, someone has said Is Robert Rauschenberg someone who's interesting to you? Is Paul Klee someone who is interesting to you? Can you talk about it, a forebear for visual aesthetics?
Sure, sure. Well, I think, in terms of the collage, my sort of earliest introduction to collage, one of my earliest introductions to collage was Romar Bearden. And so, particularly him taking these photographs of, New Yorkers during the Harlem Renaissance, and then collaging those into, other individuals who felt like they could represent that time and that place. So, self-portraiture or collage is certainly one of the most integral parts of my practice. I think also, before I even claimed the title or owned the title of artist for myself, I was interested in, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm blanking on the name, the gouache cutouts, Matisse's gouache cutouts. And I would say that seeing those and getting a book about Matisse's gouache cutouts was one of the moments that changed my life. That would have probably been in my late 20s. And I just started, I was married at the time, and my ex-wife bought me a sketchbook, and I made a drawing, and I hated the drawing and put the sketchbook away. And then she was like, well, I spent good money on that sketchbook. You should probably use it. And so I just started collaging and filling sketchbook after sketchbook after sketchbook. And I really just haven't stopped.
I'm going to throw one more, and Emily, maybe if you see one more burning thing, because otherwise we should roll on. But there were two folks that were wondering about the elastic that you use for your springinesses.
Yes.
Technical term right there.
Springiness. when I packed my bag, I definitely had one of those puppets that uses the elastic, and I apologize because it doesn't look like it actually made it all the way to the studio with me. That's a different style of puppet, and not necessarily the pocket puppet. That one uses corrugated cardboard and a rubber band as a means of just being able to use one hand to pull the neck of the puppet or the jaw of the puppet down and it popping back up. So yeah, I apologize that I don't have that one with me. And but Emily has one. Perfect. Thank you, Emily.
Right.
I faked this from his presentation for the National Puppet Society, and I think actually Jerusha Graham introduced me to this, and I think mine is slightly different, but it's basically just the cardboard, and then the elastic goes around both parts, and there's a straw that allows you to pull it up and down on a chopstick. And Anwar did it where he has kind of a block and the rubber band goes around the block. So there's obviously this is subject to a lot of interpretation, but again, it's very immediate. It's a couple rubber bands and a straw, which I'm always trying to get him not to give me, and chopsticks. Right. So, there's a lot of takeout last year. So
there's and I'll say this much. I know my time is coming to an end soon, and I do want to say thank you to everyone. Alexander Calder is a really big influence, and Calder did these circuses that are just fantastic, and there's sort of old footage of Alexander Calder's circus around. But yeah, and to Emily's point, with all of these designs, there's so many ways to hack them. There's so many ways to change them. There's so many ways to sort of remake them and find new ways of creating and new movement in them. And that's one of the reasons I love them so much as well. When I'm doing workshops with people, I always learn something myself and always inspired by just how other artists and creative people will use very simple designs. So thank you so much, Sean. Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, thank you, Anwar.
One last plug, Sean. This is there's a book. Paul Klee made puppets for his children. he didn't really, I mean, he was an artist, so that, you know, but there's a wonderful book that's just called Paul Klee Hand Puppets. And he made all kinds of different puppets, and some of them got lost along the way, but they all ended up being collected by his son and kind of saved. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I love the immediacy of Anwar's puppets, and I made one. So just while we were talking.
Nice.
Beautiful.
So
All right. So I think this is what we should do, because Rebecca and Lisa have something to share with us as well. And I want you to pay attention. This is the summer camp guy who's pointing his finger at you, all of you. But at the same time, maybe you want to sit there and fiddle with your puppet while they're talking. I'm seeing actually a lot of multitasking going on right now. And God love you for being able to manage that. So maybe we'll do a little show and tell at the very end, and we'll all hold up what we worked on. For me, I'm appreciating how we are very tight people, us paper engineers. And so my little guy, where's my camera? His message is, stay loose. This is good, loose work. Thank you, Anwar.
Thank you.
Show and tell at the end. Also, the question came up about all of these rich, wonderful references. Again, the chat is going to be recorded, and you're going to be able to download the chat, and you'll get the link for that when I send out the follow-up email next week. So don't worry. There's also a way you can download the chat right now. Tech people, you know how to do that, but we'll send you a link too.
yeah, and Anwar's on Instagram. You can find him there. Some people were asking about being able to contact you. You can find him, and you have a website. Do you not, Anwar? That we'll put it'll all be in the chat. So if you need to get into, yeah, he's on. Kyra's way ahead of me.
And be gentle. He's new to us. Be gentle.
Yeah, right. Don't overwhelm him.
Don't overwhelm him, unless he wants it, and then that's on him.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Our headliner this afternoon, all the way from Sweden, we have Rebecca Rouse, a PhD senior lecturer in media arts, aesthetics, and narration at the University of Skövde, Sweden. Rouse's research focuses on both the history and practice of storytelling with new technologies. Rouse creates projects for museums, heritage sites, interactive installation, movable books, and theatrical performance, all with the thread of investigating and inventing new modes of storytelling, as well as accompanying historical research into connections of today's emerging media with technologies of the past. Her URL is going to show up in the chat, RebeccaRouse.com. Lisa Holloway-Attaway, also a PhD and an associate professor in media arts, aesthetics, and narration in the Division of Game Development in the School of Informatics at the University of Skövde, Sweden. She teaches within the games education, and she is a leader of the Games Arts Media Experience, that's an acronym that is GAME, if you might have noticed, research group at the university. Her current research is focused on emergent media, AR/VR/MR, experimental digital narrative forms, digital cultural heritage games, and feminist new materialisms and post-humanities. Let's hand the mic and the spotlight over to Rebecca.
Well, hi. Let me see if we can get our screen sharing going here. And we will share. Okay. Okay, I hope that looks right to everybody. And Lisa, I hope that looks right from your view too, because we're giving this talk together here. Well, thank you so much for having us, John and Emily and everyone. We're really, really thrilled to be here. So in this talk, we're going to look at examples of creative, emergent, and performative practices in readership that help inform our own interdisciplinary art practice in augmented reality movable books. We're building on the work of several scholars of the history of the book, such as Jacqueline Reed Walsh and Hannah Field. And we look at these historical examples for an understanding of readers' emergent creativity. And we draw out a set of design strategies from the history of movable books that can be used to guide design practice today. And we reflect on the use of these strategies in some of our own handmade book projects, one in particular we share with you today.
Yes, so tracing this history of the interactive, movable, animated book, and also the parallel history of creative readership practices, we believe frees us as designers from the obligation to claim newness or novelty. So this liberation can provide us with inspiration in the form of design metaphors, interaction modes, and story structures as we see ourselves as part of a long entangled continuum of people who are doing, other things with books, as you well know. So this term we're using, who is the post-digital reader, and what do we mean by that? So this concept of the post-digital goes back at least to the early 2000s, and it has different meanings across disciplines that range from computer, music, museum studies, art, aesthetics, and traditional performance. And our understanding of the post-digital emphasizes the end of newness as a liberating opportunity for designers like ourselves, who are then released from any obligation to focus on novelty. The post that we're talking about doesn't indicate that we're past or we're through with the digital. We have yet to finish sorting out our cultural, social, and political entanglements with the digital. But in our usage of the term, the post-digital refers to an audience who's less dazzled by the digital. So it's a state actually more exciting for creators, as it has the potential for deeper, more critical engagement with digital projects.
So as designers, we're really interested to understand the post-digital reader today. And looking back at the history of readership can help us to do this. So just as Hannah Field's research into so-called unruly readers has shown, we also believe a deeper review of the history of the book shows that any fantasy of passive readership arises more as a product of our current age than as a misconception that's held on from the past. This viewpoint contradicts notions of the book as a passive medium or as interactive only in terms of cognitive receptive processes. So we take issue with Hales and Pressman's notion, you see the quote on the slide here, that a fantasy of straightforward transmission was even possible during the print dominant era. I mean, the print dominant era, after all, is centuries long. And research has actually shown that the normalization of the docile reader belongs to a relatively short-lived specific time period. We can connect that research on the history of to the history of well-behaved or docile audiences as well. Richard Bush's research in The Making of American Audiences demonstrates that the creation of the passive, quiet, or well-behaved theater audience was an innovation of the dominant classes during the early 1800s as a tactic to help preserve their own role in the social hierarchy during a time when theater was opening up and becoming more democratized as a medium available to members of more economic classes. So the tamping down of theater audience interactivity as rowdiness, which was done in service of ameliorating class anxiety that Richard Bush identifies, that connects very nicely with the concept of the well-behaved reader in Hannah Field's research on Victorian novelty picture books. She's got a wonderful book from 2019 on this. And despite authors' best efforts to very explicitly instruct child readers in practices of well-behaved reading, Fields reveals in her research the physical evidence of the many ways in which children resisted these calls to docility, asserted their agency, and displayed their creativity in how they interacted with texts. So given that historically informed understanding of readers as creative and active, how can we further parse the different kinds of ways readers engage a text? In addition to the scholarship from Hannah Field on the topic, we're also influenced by research from Patricia Crane, and of course, Jacqueline Reed Walsh's marvelous book, which is called Interactive Books, Playful Media Before Pop-Ups. So how do these active readers, from prior centuries engage their texts? We've identified 3 different modes of interaction as a kind of framework. So some interact in what we could call canonical ways. They pull the tab marked pull. They do what you're supposed to do. They open the flap in the manner the designer intended. But some readers interact in more emergent ways. For example, this Kate Anthony, a little girl in the 1850s who created a custom book jacket for her reader in which she also stored handmade paper doll clothes. So there's links here to readers' strategies of layering and accretion, creating things like extra illustrated or Grangerized texts. And then there's also resistant ways of engaging these books, engaging the book with snarky commentary in the margins, torn out pages, layered drawings, or other engagements that are more transformational and more assertive of the reader's agency. So keeping in mind these different modes of reader post-digital engagement with the book in mind, we next turn to examine the history of movable books to look for design strategies that we might use today in our own work with augmented reality and book design.
So we look at these strategies as a way to sort of understand books, but connecting the book history to design practices, including specifically our own design practices, but the practices that we hope we can share as well. So we have created 7 design strategies that are based on our own historical research. We actually published this taxonomy in the Book 2.0 journal, the January 2020 issue, as a prehistory of the interactive reader and design principles for storytelling in digital or post-digital culture. So if you're interested, you can look more thoroughly at that. But one of the strategies, so the first strategy is what we call the book as instrument. So when we're looking at forms such as volvels that are intended to support astronomical navigation, similar to the interactive fold-out map, we can compare these to current forms of digital navigation and calculation that are afforded, for example, by GPS tracking, but also augmented reality or AR technologies. These particular technologies are meant to situate a reader in a precise location, to place them in an otherwise abstract space as a form of orientation toward greater understanding, or even just to prepare them to receive additional information. So in this sense, their connection to data, whether it's scientific or digital, creates a kind of educational engagement with the physical world.
And it was so cool to see that example in the video of the punch-out geometry book as instrument. Super cool.
Yeah.
So another strategy we gleaned from this research, scale the book in such a way that the book then becomes an intimate personal object. It could be carried easily in a hand or the pocket in the case of medieval girdle bindings, attached and worn. This could invite connection with wearable technologies common today, such as fitness trackers and phone watches, wearable digital artworks that blur the line between device and fashion, using materials like flexible circuits and conductive thread, or even the intimate relationship that many of us just have with our smartphone. So the reader becomes conceptualized as a collector or owner of the precious miniature handheld object in this case.
And our third strategy, which we call the book as a secret keeper or giver. So flat-based books, such as the anatomical flat books and more modern transparency books, as well as Harlequin or Metamorphose books, make use of the opacity of paper or the transparency of plastic to both cover and reveal hidden information. So this kind of interaction invites the reader to enact discovery or not, or even in some cases, a sort of more deep transformation, as in the case of the magic finger. So there's a connection here to the layering potentials of augmented and mixed reality, which we'll discuss in just a moment with our own work, but also opportunities for juxtapositions of all kinds, including humor. for example.
And I should just say that the Magic Finger book we're referencing is that wonderful Roald Dahl picture book where you can hold the page up to the light and see the teacher turned into a cat. So another strategy we pulled out was the book is a substrate for accretion of objects. And here we're drawing on examples like trompe-l'oeil manuscripts, Steer's Dragonology book, or the Ologies series of books, the Jolly Postman book series from Janet and Alan Alberg. This strategy connects with the history of the commonplace book, the scrapbook, that several scholars have connected to contemporary practices of image collection and circulation on social media feeds. This strategy also connects with Grangerization, which we might then link to creative practices in game communities today, like modding. Dadaist cut-up work and its relation to digital remix culture or combinatory poetics can be connected here too. And works that utilize this strategy of the book as a substrate present narrative as a collection of fragments that the reader is then invited to reorder or construct.
And then we can also think of the book as an illusion of motion. So book elements like these include blow books, or as they're sometimes referred to, flick books, as well as flip books. These types of books require a high level of physical interaction to operate the interface by using the fingers, for example, to rapidly flip the pages. These are related to philosophical toys such as the thaumatropes and zoetropes, which can also be included as embedded structures in books. This strategy connects in more contemporary terms to cinematic experiences and the film screen, with its use of the flickering image to create an illusion of motion by harnessing the audience's visual perception ability.
And then, of course, as you heard, we're both from a games program, so we also saw the strategy of the book as game or puzzle. And examples of this kind of book range from works like Carols Through the Looking Glass, which is a chess game throughout, Graham Bass's The 11th Hour, the Jolly Postman series again, Bantock's Griffin and Sabina, and many more, including contemporary examples like even Mad Libs and Choose Your Own Adventure books. Those works conceptualize the reader as a player and connect to a host of related game technologies and gamification experiences that can be extended in related narrative-based games like Undertale, Soma, Life is Strange, or even earlier text adventure computer games like Colossal, Cave Adventure, or Oregon Trail.
And then finally, we like to consider the book as a performative space or even a stage. So the book as a site for performative intervention by readers or users encompasses a really wide range of interactions, from minimalist participation, such as peeping, as with tunnel books, or more active forms of performance, such as rearranging doll figures or manipulating objects in toy theaters, or even building backdrops and set pieces. So these miniature spaces invite the reader to project themselves into story worlds with physical play and enjoy both a sense of mastery and wonder. And this can be described more fully in works such as Bachelard and his mediation on the miniature and the poetics of space. So now we've summarized some of these design strategies, and we want to show you how we consider them in our own book project. We have a few, but we're going to focus on one today, and then just very briefly outline how we connect them with this rich history. So our most recent project is called Simmer. It's from 2019, and it's an entirely handmade two-sided artist book and an augmented reality application, a mobile AR application that we created in collaboration with composer Brendan Padgett. And Simmer explores and expands John Cheever's classic short story called The Swimmer from 1964. And it actually won the Excellence in Innovation Jury Award at the International Conference for Interactive Digital Storytelling, or the iKids, in the art exhibition that was held in Salt Lake City, Utah in November 2019. So it was actually like one of the last places I think that we traveled together before the pandemic. So special for lots of reasons. But while Cheever's landmark story crafts an expert portrayal of its protagonist, that is the narcissistic Ned Merrill, Ned's wife Lucinda and the 4 unnamed daughters are left unexplored and underexplored. So another side of the story, which we bring forth in our project, capturing a host of voices and affective resonances that actively engage the reader.
So to develop the project, the 3 of us, myself, Lisa, and Brendan, the composer, we were then each located in New York, Sweden, and Washington, D.C. We came together remotely to create our concept and begin prototyping. I was inspired by an article from the Movable Book Society archives about a children's book that had a dual accordion fold and carousel structure. Paper engineer Paulette Petrovsky's 1987 Pooh and Some Bees, Winnie the Pooh carousel book. So this was described in an article from the February 2001 issue of Movable Stationery, written by Ulf Stammer on carousel pop-ups. And I was really intrigued by the discussion of how the book could be configured both as a linear accordion and in a 3-dimensional fashion. And that felt like a wonderful fit for our project conceptually, with the linearity of Ned's story and the depth we sought to reveal by creating Lucinda's side of the story. So I first made a roughly quarter-size mock-up version. It was really pretty tiny. You can see my enormous finger in the picture there. Using a store-bought accordion fold notebook that was actually vertical in orientation. We changed that later. Then I moved to make the full-size version, which I created entirely from hand, and I decided to shift to a horizontal orientation for the book, thus exaggerating the length of the panoramic size and increasing the size of the rooms on the carousel, or what we would call a dollhouse side for our project. So Simmer opens as this linear accordion fold book or panorama. It presents a retelling of Ned's story from his perspective. But I actually think, Lisa, did you want to share this part of the talk?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead. I feel like I talked a lot.
Okay, so yeah, so there's 2 sides. So on the linear accordion fold book, or the panorama side, this is, again, Ned's story as we see it from his perspective. So the long, narrow surface of the panorama reflects his long-winded, narcissistic musings, and these are very evident when we look at the original text. And we have cut-up quotations from Cheever's original text then, reflective also of Dadaist poetry, and they're woven into the imagery, often filling the empty swimming pools that dot the landscape. And our augmented reality audio tracks off of the panorama images, and they present a kind of radio play style dialogue and atmospheric music from Ned's fantasy world, with other characters that are, revering him as larger than life, as kind of legendary and godlike. But if you look more closely, there's a red thread that's sewn through this side of the book. And it makes metaphorical connections between the linear and nonlinear writing forms that we're really trying to include in the text. The nonlinear being a kind of disruptive, fragmented way to create a new kind of narrative. So these get revealed as the accordion book is turned inside out, which you can see in the image on the right, where it's transforming into a carousel or dollhouse structure. So the red thread is visible here too. So it's sort of this tenuous connection between the 2 sides of the book, which are really then the 2 sides of the story. So then if we look more closely on the carousel side of the book, this is where we're really within what, the sort of novel way we try to create the domestic house space, or Lucinda's world, which was the part that's really overlooked or silenced in the original text. So here, this is where we're drawing on a narrative experience that's nonlinear, it's more associative, that's directly in contrast to Ned's linear narrative on the accordion side of the book. So inside this space, or inside the house, the reader is asked to, or interactor, we don't know what we call it, the user, the reader, the interactive, pieces together this fragmentary narrative through exploration of the objects that we place within this text. They manipulate a variety of traditional pop-up and movable elements like paper dolls and animated flip books, a miniature book, tunnel book, flaps. There's a fold-out map that's painted with thermochromic paint that responds to heat, so you can touch it or blow on it. And if you do, it reveals hidden text when it's touched by the reader. These interactions are often hidden then for the reader to uncover and then to present fragments of narrative to piece together. And in this way, if we go back to the design strategies we were talking about, this is, for example, how we see the book as a kind of secret keeper or even a secret giver. And I just mentioned that more recently now, we've really begun to reflect more carefully on the use of our audio in particular as a distinguishing feature of our augmented reality experience, because it's not necessarily usual to have audio only within AR. And we're also trying to connect it then to historical examples in the way, we just shared with the others. But in this case, our emphasis is on historical audio technologies and related material media. So for example, we look at medieval sheet music, used for shape note singing, or the Book of Hours for devotional praying, but that is also meant to be spoken aloud, 15th century musical clocks, and other automata. And we go up to and beyond, for example, Edison's failed experiments rather, with recorded sound, and his talking dolls, for example, which are represented here and we share in a moment. We note how these kind of influence and intersect with our own digital designs. And then, like the other transhistorical connections we've shared today, we find the digital is really not so unique. And so overall, I'd say that our augmented reality audio moves across many different semiotic registers, and it's meant to engage people who have to parse the information as it unfolds, like the different parts of the book. So they discover it in nonlinear fragmentary pieces. So like with the paper dolls that represent the 4 silenced daughters, there's also miniature LPs and a little tiny poetry book from Emily Dickinson. There are secret letters that are also from secret and illicit lovers. And then the audio that we make situates the interactors in the different states of proximity. So sometimes you're up close and there's the audio is very kind of confessional and diary-like, and sometimes you feel like an eavesdropper to the action. And because we're using the mobile AR, you can hold the phone close to listen in, and we kind of then have this kind of sonic and tactile way of engaging. And we have musical scores that are constructed and deconstructed as themes for primary characters. And then they change, are deconstructed in various ways, whether they're on the accordion fold or on the domestic space. But I've said a lot now. So I think maybe we can just show you, it's a very short video, but just to get a sense of then how these interactions work, we have just a short few minute video that we can demo that with.
And how are the girls? Adjusting to their new surroundings? I mean, if you've been to visit them, or do you have some other kind of arrangement worked out? Not that I mean to pry. I would really never pry. Just asking how you've been, you old monster.
It's Emily's poem, but it's mine too. She wrote it, but so did I. I'm saying it with her. Reaching across the years, we write together, privately, and yet together. Like her, I bundle up my poems, wrap them secretly and securely, writing them on bits and pieces of whatever. I can always find a surface.
So just to wrap up then, here are some of our final takeaways reflecting on how we approach designing for this post-digital reader we've been investigating. We think about casting the reader, efficient storytelling, exposing seams, and understanding the dramaturgical impact of technology, whether that's paper technology or digital technology. But we think there's probably more strategies to uncover, and we'd love to hear your ideas about that. And we think these questions provide not only an invitation to designers for consideration with regards to specific design challenges at hand, but also present openings to a range of trajectories for future research in the field and research and practice in art practice and research. So as digital media and books kind of continue this ever-shifting dance and collaboration, we suggest a continuation of the pursuit of connection, the back and forth across time and technology. Awareness of this really rich, interactive, and inspiring past has great potential for helping us to create an increasingly diverse future of designed possibilities for our books and readers. And if you're interested to learn more about our research on the topic, there's a citation for our recent article from the Book 2.0 journal there on the slide. And that's it for us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We had a very attentive audience who were soaking in a lot of content there. And I think they're still sort of processing their thoughts. But Emily, do you see a question you want to start with there?
I do. One of the questions had to do with whether books incorporate more than one of the strategies that you mentioned in the beginning of your talk. And I don't know which one of you wants to try and take that on, but.
Do you want to take that, Lisa?
Or you, Ken? Or...
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the answer is yes, absolutely. Books incorporate more than one, for sure. I mean, especially if you think about something like the Jolly Postman books. I mean, they sort of like the Christmas Jolly Postman I'm thinking of in particular. I mean, it has like every like trick in the book as you go through what comes out of each envelope. Like there's, you know, first of all, there's envelopes and enclosures, but then there's like literally puzzle, there's like literally a board game, there's a tunnel book. So absolutely. The triggers for the AR elements, I'm just a question we can answer real quickly. It's computer vision tracking. So it's just images in the book.
And then you used a term for a book that I'm not familiar with. What are blow books?
Oh, those are the ones that it's, you know, just a regular flip book, like an animation book. You've got like a set of pages that are all exactly the same length, and you flip them and you have one strip of animation that you create. But the flick books, like flick with a K, also get called blow books. They were performed by magicians, and the edge of the pages are different. So you can thumb along different, they essentially have sort of tabs, right? And you can make the book look like the book has transformed. Like it's a book about a flower animating. No, it's not. It's a book about a face animating, depending where and magicians would blow on the book, like pretending that was doing something magic to change the content in the book. I think that's where the blow name comes from.
Okay, yeah. And then there was one more question, and I'm trying to find it again. I'm just gonna read this question. Does the term post-digital center on a nostalgia for the analog, or is it perhaps closer to an anti-digital sentiment, or is it purely a chronological term to describe books now? That's the question.
So
for me, I mean, I think we both have.
You go first, Rebecca.
I think Lisa, yeah, because I think Lisa, you're going to have a more nuanced answer than I will. My more simplistic way of thinking about it is, in how many years now is it going to be totally anachronistic for us to say digital, like a digital book? Like you would never say a paper book, right? And so I think we're really at this point now where the digital is so ubiquitous. It's not just anticipated, it's demanded, it's expected. And in that sense, the term digital is going to be not around that much longer in my way of thinking about it. But I think Lisa has a more nuanced perspective on this, actually.
No, I have a more cranky perspective on it, maybe, is what I have, which is to say that, you know, there's a little bit of irony for me, again, in that term, like playing against the chronologies, as though it can be a post and a before and after. I really love the way that it's possible again, to not think of it as something new, and also not to think of it as something that is so ubiquitous. You know, when we use a term like post-digital, or well, we don't, but when some use the term post-digital, they presume that, oh, everybody's got technologies and everyone's got a smartphone in their pocket and they're all so used to using it. But that's actually not true. There's lots of people who don't have that, and it's a term of privilege. And I think, you know, again, connecting back to all these other ways that books became interactive and were interactive and required a lot of participation from users is very interesting, because there is this presumption that, oh, now is the time where finally we're becoming actively engaged in books. So I like to use it sort of in both ways. But I think it's a complex term, and so I don't use it simply. It's useful in all of those various kinds of thinking.
Quick interjection. Rebecca is responding directly to some of the chat questions in the chat. So take a look at that if you're waiting for the answering of a question. Seth, I'm looking at you.
I'm sorry. I hope I'm not breaching protocol. I thought I would just reply to some that were less discussion questions and more informational.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. It's perfectly fine.
We're creeping up to the end as well. So totally good. Totally good.
And
I want to point my finger at Larry Rakow for a brief moment as he's disappearing away from his window. Do you have any of these blow/flick books like behind you? Larry, you're currently
my audio. No, I do have them actually. The only one that I have is a fairly modern one that was really presented as a magic book, and exactly as it was described. You can flick it like so, and it appears to be, if I remember, an all color book, and then you can flick it again, and all the colors have gone to black and white. So, yeah, it's an old technology and was used in magic primarily. Is that the one? Let's see. No, not the one, but I bet it's a lot like it. Let's see, Rebecca.
I don't know if I can show it close enough so you can see that the pages have different like angles on them.
Yeah.
So if you flipped in one place, you could see one set of pictures, but in another place, something else. I'm not very good at doing the flipping. But it's hard to see, actually. I'm sorry.
Well, the one not quite as difficult.
Maybe.
Yeah, you can kind of see it. And we may we may recruit some people who are talking about having some of these books in their in the chat. So we may have a presentation on this in Zoom if we can. So those of you who have them, we're gonna maybe be in touch. So
see how we're always thinking? We're always thinking.
Yeah.
Emily's always thinking.
I'm always thinking. I'm back here making notes.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right, I'm gonna shift over to some wrap-up comments. We're at the end here, and we're not in any hurry, so feel free to linger for a while. But if you do need to scoot away, it's all recorded. You can catch the end later if you want, if you need. Super quick, I've noted that Kyra, who is always thinking and always mathing, we've got viewers from 14 countries here today. That's pretty terrific. And 28 states in the US based on items that she's dug out of the chat. Get your puppets out, everybody. And hold them up to the camera, bring them in close, please, so we can get a good look. And then hold it there for a second, play with it, manipulate it, do it with one hand so that you can all take your other hand and you can scroll over the dozens and dozens and dozens of folks who are hanging out here today. Oh, Helen is a spectacular one. Look at that.
Mine says, thanks, Anwar.
Oh, those are gorgeous. Those are gorgeous. And otherwise, lots of cheerful faces too. Or in addition. Nice.
Anwar, look what you started. Look what you just started.
I know, this is great.
These are so beautiful. This is so amazing. I love, love, love scrolling through and being able to see so many of them. That's yeah, that's awesome. Oh yeah, cool.
Scroll.
Wow. Nice.
Oh yeah. And
Nice.
you know, I'll start making sound effects too.
Yeah, those are terrific. Oh, Kyra, did you shoot a picture of this?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Doing a quick. Okay, yeah, there's tons of stuff in here. So I'll look carefully over that chat and we'll do follow-up. We'll do some follow-up. All right. Our next event is August 7th. So mark your calendars for August 7th. It's also a Saturday. I have no idea what time it'll be because I do not yet know whether or not our headliners will be in Canada or Sweden or Africa. I don't know. We're gonna find out. So block off some time. I think that's all. Emily, do you have anything else for wrap up?
No, you know, we're working on the presenters, and you know, if somebody's got an idea for something they'd like to present, you can always reach us.
We keep a list.
And yeah, and so we're always looking, and as you can tell, if you've been coming to these, we're pretty wide ranging in what we like to throw up here. So you know, we're open to lots of things. It could be you have a good collection of something, or you like to make a certain thing, or you know, like
what's the most important thing you're going to do Tuesday?
Kickstarter.
Go to Kickstarter. If nothing else, take a good long look at it and share it with other people. At the very most, buy the one with the slipcase because it's going to be pretty. And there's a lot of them. There's 100 of them. There's 100 of them. Yeah.
Yep.
Super. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody. So great to see your faces.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, presenters. It's a lovely night.
And so we do gather the information that's gone into the chat, and so we'll make that available to you. So if you're frantically writing things down, you can all calm down.
Right.
And or you can say it yourself.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
But yes, and I like that the puppets are still pupping.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, thank you all for coming.
Thanks,
We
Martine.
had 120 people at the top. And
Yes. Yeah. Good.
So-
Agreed around. Super. All right. So we're not going to share anything new. I'm going to turn off the recording right now.